Chapter 17. Economic crises. The basis of capitalist crises of overproduction. Capitalist crises are overproduction crises. Goods are produced in excess of what people can afford to buy, leading to unsold goods, production cuts, and unemployment. Overproduction is relative, not absolute. There's not an excess of goods compared to people's needs, but rather compared to their ability to pay for them. People go hungry because they cannot afford the food that has been produced. Crises are unique to capitalism. While economic hardships existed in pre-capitalist societies, they stemmed from scarcity. Capitalist crises arise from an abundance of goods alongside widespread poverty. The root cause lies in capitalism's fundamental contradiction. This is the conflict between social production and private appropriation. Goods are produced by the collective effort of workers, but the profits are captured by capitalists. Anarchy of production exacerbates the problem. While individual factories are organized, the overall economy lacks planning, leading to imbalances and eventually crises. Capitalists' pursuit of profit fuels overproduction. The drive to maximize profit leads capitalists to constantly expand production, even if it outpaces demand. Crises are inevitable under capitalism. The system's inherent contradictions and drive for profit make crises a recurring feature. The only way to eliminate crises is to abolish capitalism itself. Cyclic character of capitalist reproduction. This text describes the cyclical nature of capitalist crises, highlighting their recurring pattern and increasing severity. Here's a breakdown. Key takeaways. Crises are cyclical. Capitalist crises of overproduction occur at regular intervals, roughly every 8 to 12 years. This pattern is driven by the inherent contradictions of capitalism. The cycle has 4 phases. Crisis, marked by overproduction, falling prices, bankruptcies, and unemployment. This violently readjusts production to demand. Depression, production stagnates, prices remain low, and businesses struggle. This phase sets the stage for recovery. Recovery. Production starts to increase, prices rise, and profits grow. Boom. Production exceeds pre-crisis levels, new investments are made, and speculation drives further expansion. This eventually leads to the next crisis. Crises drive innovation. Capitalists respond to crises by introducing new technologies and methods to reduce costs and increase efficiency. Crises worsen over time. Each crisis creates conditions for even larger and more destructive future crises. Historical context. The text provides a historical overview of major capitalist crises, starting in the 19th century and continuing into the 20th century. This illustrates the recurring nature of crises throughout the history of capitalism. Material basis for the cycle. The text emphasizes the role of fixed capital, machinery, equipment, etc., in the cycle. The need to periodically renew this capital, which has a lifespan of roughly 10 years, contributes to the cyclical pattern of crises. Agrarian crises are rooted in overproduction. Just like industrial crises, agrarian crises stem from capitalism's fundamental contradiction: social production and private appropriation. This leads to an oversupply of agricultural goods relative to effective demand. Agrarian crises are typically prolonged. They tend to last longer than industrial crises due to unique factors within agriculture. Factors contributing to the protracted nature of agrarian crises. Landlordism and rent. Landlords continue to demand rent even during crises, forcing tenant farmers to reduce wages and deplete their capital, hindering recovery. Backwardness of agriculture. Compared to industry, agriculture under capitalism is less technologically advanced and less receptive to capital investment, making it harder to increase efficiency and overcome crises. Persistence of small producers. Peasants often maintain or even increase production during crises to survive, exacerbating overproduction. Impact of agrarian crises. These crises devastate peasant populations, accelerate the concentration of land ownership, and hinder the development of agricultural productivity. Crises and the sharpening of the contradictions of capitalism. Crises deepen contradictions. Economic crises exacerbate the existing problems within capitalism, making future crises even more severe. Crises are universal. They affect all sectors of the economy and spread globally, impacting both production and trade. Crises cause significant economic decline. Production levels fall dramatically, often setting countries back years or even decades in terms of economic development. Crises expose the wastefulness of capitalism. Vast quantities of goods, resources, and productive capacity are destroyed during crises, highlighting the system's inherent inefficiency and disregard for human need. Crises inflict immense suffering. Mass unemployment, poverty, and hunger are widespread consequences of crises, leading to social instability and desperation. Crises intensify class struggle. The hardships imposed on the working class during crises heighten their awareness of capitalist exploitation and fuel their resistance against the system. Crises expose the limitations of the bourgeois state. The state's inability to prevent or effectively manage crises reveals its subservience to capitalist interests and its impotence in the face of the system's inherent contradictions. Crises signal the need for change. They demonstrate that capitalism's productive forces have outgrown its outdated relations of production, hindering further progress and necessitating a transition to a new system. The historical tendency of capitalist development. The proletariat as the gravedigger of capitalism. Concentration of capital. Capitalism inevitably leads to the concentration of wealth and property in fewer and fewer hands, as larger capitalists outcompete and absorb smaller ones. Growth of the working class. As capitalism develops, it creates its own gravedigger, a large and increasingly organized working class. Rise of class consciousness. The working class, driven by its own interests and guided by Marxist theory, becomes increasingly aware of its exploitation and its potential to overthrow capitalism. Socialist revolution. The concentration of capital and the growth of the working class create the conditions for a socialist revolution, where the means of production are socialized and exploitation is abolished. Expropriation of the expropriators. Just as capitalists initially seized control of the means of production from the masses, the socialist revolution will see the masses reclaim those means of production.